we have had a number of videos go crazy in views. Like we've had a couple videos over the last couple weeks go in excess of 100,000 views on social media. And so what comes along with that, what I love about that is people that listen to the show know on the real estate show is I like to look at comments that people are saying to us throughout the week and then bring that as a very topical issue coming to the show.
Yes.
So one of the things I was coming to the show that I wanted to bring up, and this was not a video we did, but it was a response to a video that Dave Ramsey had done. And so I was actually about 2 weeks ago, I was very, very fortunate as one of Dave's Ramsey Trusted providers here in the Tri-Cities. We were able to go back to Nashville, go out to Ramsey headquarters, visit with Dave and Rachel Cruz, his daughter, and tour through the facilities and talk to our real estate coaches back there that help with the program and how we can better serve Dave's listeners. But part of it, it's always kind of interesting then when I get on social media and I see some of the videos that get posted. And so I always like to look at those comments and then take a stab at what's going on. Also, with graduations out there, a lot of kids are graduating college and moving on to the next phase of their life. And one of the things Dave talks about is home ownership. And so there was a video of Dave where he was talking about putting 20% down on a house and then using a 15-year mortgage. Anybody that's gone through Financial Peace University or followed Dave's advice knows that in an ideal scenario, that is what he preaches.
Yes.
So people always ask me, and that people go to his website and they get referred to us through the Ramsey program, and they're like, Lance, is that the only way you'll sell a house to somebody? And I always say, absolutely not. Yes. Do I think that there is some very sound financial advice and merit to that? Obviously, we had to go through certifications. We had to go through Financial Peace University, and we know why Dave is recommending this. But if I limited my pool of buyers to only people that were doing that, I would sell probably 70% less homes. And so I'm also a business owner, and this is what I do. And so even though that is the ideal financial position to be in and recommended, it's not always the case. And so the comment section to that video, I brought those comments with me today so I can address what some people are saying. Because the first thing that got labeled on the video talking about Dave was it flashes on the screen, out of touch boomer. Out of touch boomer advice is what's saying. And then the comments that come with it is that this would mean to buy a median priced house in the U.S. If you followed that advice, you would have to be making $196,000 a year. So one of the comments from Logic XL says, yeah, I've just accepted I'm never going to buy a home. What can I do to make 12 G's a month that doesn't require breaking my back or going to medical school for 8 years? Okay, so there's a lot of frustration in that comment, and Logic XL, we hear you, because that is a valid point that you're making there.
Yeah.
What's interesting, and I think what counters that and is very important to look at here, is I loved how Brandometer jumped in with a comment and said, I feel that this data is misrepresented by using average house prices rather than median. There are a handful of multi-million-dollar homes that are skewing the data. I'm sure the result is the same, but I don't think it's that bad. Okay, and I would counter and agree with that. Like, it's really, really fun for me to see a lot of these college graduates going out and getting jobs.
Yeah.
People that are becoming, and working as, a lot of my kids' friends are becoming firefighters and policemen, and they're going into these different jobs. And So I think, though, that this video and the comments present a very valid point, which is that, yes, the margins are tight, but it is still possible.
Yeah.
And I loved that second comment because what it said is they're talking about average price points. And it's really easy to drive around Tri-Cities and see homes that are $500,000, $600,000, $1 million, and think that that is all that is available to you.
Yeah, but it's not.
It's not. And we now have, and you know, I'm going to get comments about this. Like there's always these comments about national builders being in our market versus local builders, and there's advantages to both. But I will tell you that when we have a supply and healthy competition in a market like Tri-Cities, there are deals out there under 400,000 that get to 350,000. We listed some properties the last week that were 270,000 to 300,000. Now, is it going to have stainless steel appliances and granite countertops and be a smart home? No. No, it is not going to be that. But there are some stepping stones in there that we can look at to put people in as starter homes.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this next comment by Financial Physics. He's actually responding to Brandometer, who said that there are deals out there. And he says, nah, those got bought by fiat leverage boomers and BlackRock to rent out at ridiculous prices, which also has destroyed American birth rates. He added that in because we're having a real estate discussion.
Okay.
And so, okay, there's a lot to unpack in there as well.
Yeah.
But I love some of these comments because this is what people are talking about in the real estate space. And so what he's saying in that situation is that all of the available homes that would have been in my price range got bought out by hedge funds and got bought out by large institutional buyers like BlackRock.
Yes.
I can 100% tell you, in some markets, that did happen. Yes, I've talked to the real estate agents. I was at a national conference when I was in Nashville. I've talked to them. There are markets where this happened. Tri-Cities, although there was some buying by institutional buyers, it was not problematic across the entire market. So for local listeners in our market, that was not a big issue. It's an advantage that we have here, meaning that we were not one of those target markets for that type of buying.
Yes.
So that one's pretty easy to unwind. Now, the shade thrown at the boomers, as the kids like to say, there's a certain amount of truth to that comment. And I actually did a video about that, which said no one is selling their house, which some of my colleagues in the industry did not appreciate, and they sent me text messages about as well.
Interesting.
We've been talking this week about the comments section to some of our videos, and you know, I throw out some of these interviews and our thoughts on things on social media. And every now and then, you guys go nuts on some of our videos. and so this one got a couple 100,000 views, and there was a lot of comments about that. And the premise of the video that I put out there was why no one is selling their houses that have 2.875% mortgage rates or 2.5% mortgage rates. Why? You know, what would it take for you to sell that house? And the example I think I gave in the video was upgrading from 400,000 at 2.5 to 600,000 at 6.5, tripling payments. And so there were a lot of great comments about this, but the first comment, the one that just absolutely got me, that I had to reread like 3 different times because there was a lot to unpack here. But the comment and response that I got was, what it took for me to sell my 3% rate was an overbearing HOA and combined with a creepy neighbor who was trying to get my wife to cheat on me. Unsuccessfully, he says. His wife is amazing. It worked out for us, though, because we were able to come out ahead by selling that property and then buying a fixer-upper on some land. So we put 20% down, paid off my wife's student loans, and still had some extra cash to do the remodeling. So I got to say, touche to my video. Those are some really good reasons.
Yeah.
on why you would. But so I got a kick out of it, but there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot to unpack in there. Number one, we've done entire shows on overbearing HOAs and not necessarily even just in our local market. They're all the way across the United States. And you see many, many different examples. If you ever want to go down a TikTok rabbit hole, there's plenty of accounts where you can see some absolute craziness that happens in that case. And then neighbors. We've all talked about how neighbors can make or break a neighborhood, and it can be that can be a big difference to your level of satisfaction and enjoyment of your house.
Yes.
But then I liked what the example said, and it said that they were able to move types of properties that better suited their needs. So they were in a townhouse. They had that great interest rate, but they wanted something that was on more land, something that they could gain equity in from fixing up. And so that would be a move that would make sense. Can you gain enough equity to make up the difference? And does it provide another class of property that you didn't have before? Those are really, really good reasons of why people are churning and making the move in this market.
Yes.
The next comment, and I get this a lot as well, and it works really, really well in our property management company, and we see this a lot. So the next comment that I got from Lion FBI, which I'm not sure if there's more to that screen.
Is it LYIN or LION?
LYAN there.
Okay.
But they said, yes, we got a house in January of 2020 and refinanced it at 2.8%, exactly like I was talking about. We are not going to sell this house, period. Even if we move, we would rather find a tenant to rent it from us so we can take advantage of the lower rate, and we would take another loan for the other house. I can't tell you how often I'm seeing this in property management. So a lot of people that get, and there's other comments that will demonstrate this, but a lot of reasons why people end up needing to move is like a work transfer or a job transfer. Or they need to be closer to family. If someone in the family became sick and they need to move out of state to take care of a family member. A lot of people are making the choice, and they're coming to me and they're like, hey, Lance, you have your property management company. We're going to move. And so we're leaving for work. But what does the cash flow look like? What kind of rent can we get for this property? Because our payment is very, very low, and we're locked in at that 2.8% rate. So let's keep this as an investment property. Let somebody else make the payment. When you're locked in at that lower rate, you have plenty of monthly cash flow to cover the cost of professional property management. It's a great, great way for people to continue to build equity and wealth in that instance. And so this comment demonstrates that perfectly. Look at property management as a potential angle for you to go ahead and rent. The next comment I thought was great. What it took for me to sell was to remove a cosigner that I really needed to get off my mortgage. It sucks. Sorry, I'm reading this exactly. So I'll be careful. It sucks, but it's still better than the situation I was in. Do you want to know what needed to get a cosigner off my mortgage is code for?
They weren't paying.
No, I think it was a divorce, actually.
Oh.
So this is becoming more and more common in the situations we are at. Is somebody bought a house in that environment and they get divorced. And what happens is a lot of people are like, well, can't we just quit claim the house to one or the other, the husband or the wife? Well, that takes care of your title question, but it does not relieve you from the obligation on your loan. And so in that situation, both parties are still responsible. So if something happens, if there's late payments on that mortgage, if one party stops, even if you weren't responsible for it in the divorce decree, the mortgage company says until that's refinanced and out of your name or that property is sold and that's paid off, both parties are still responsible for those payments. And so I'm kind of reading this as code that they're saying like, hey, I needed to get this. I needed to move on. The other thing that it does is if one party goes to try to buy another house and there's still a party to that previous mortgage, that debt is going to count against them. And in many cases, they won't be able to qualify for their next purchase. So that is also a very, very valid reason for that to happen. I'm going to shorten this next one because it is radio and there are children that sometimes listen to this. Our builder effed us when we were ready to close and move in. The rate was supposed to be 2.9, but they were late delivering the product. And rates had jumped, our lock had expired, and we had to close at 5.25. That person's really, really mad. And
it sounds
for good reason. I mean, obviously, like, I have a job, so I can't, like, investigate every single one of these details that comes in. But if that is any sort of somewhat accurate description of the process, this can happen. And so I always say, talk to your agent. Get a buyer agent rep when you're building new construction. A lot of people have a tendency to say, well, I'm just going to go direct to the builder. I don't need an agent. Well, you need somebody in your corner who's following those deadlines, who knows that you have a lock on your mortgage rate, who knows that you need to close on a certain day, because it seems like there were a lot of things that fell through the cracks in this situation. And unfortunately for that consumer, as they stated in there, now they're paying over $1,000, $1,200 a month more than they thought they were going to be paying for that house. So that can be a big, big problem. And then I got a couple comments like this next one, which are amazing. That is, I have a $3 million home at 2.9%. I'll be in this house until I'm dead. That's an amazing example of what we were talking about.
A little on the macabre side, but it's true.
On the macabre side, but then there were comments that also said, "I hate my house, but I'm not losing my 3.2% interest rate. So I guess I'm just stuck in this blank hole." So these comments. So once again, how important is interest rate? That's what we were talking about in that case. And then in many cases, it's trumped some of the emotional value of owning the house. I mean, this really struck a chord where people are like, the financial certainty of what I have is more important than the emotional need that I have for the housing. Now, I've done videos the opposite way where people are like, hey, it's less about, and another comment I got that was hilarious, and it's a saying that you'll sometimes hear people say, and they'll say, marry the house, date the rate. Yes. And that was another comment that I got. So that's when the emotional side then is more important than that. So what they're saying is, if you find the perfect house and emotionally it works for you and size works for your family, if you can financially afford it, and here's where I go back to the Ramsey video that we talked about in the first episode, in the first segment. If you can financially afford it, and that is the perfect house, marry the house, buy the house, and then date the rate. Keep that. What that means is have that rate until you can refinance. But why does Dave Ramsey have so many followers? And many say he's very smart because the rate could go up.
Yes.
This isn't certainty. So you have to be, if you're going to use that strategy, that advice only works if you're in a very, very comfortable financial situation to where you can cover it.
Yes.
Because though many predict it will go down, there's nothing that says it can't go the other direction. So you have to be careful in that situation as well. I've got to tell you, I just want to shout out and thank you to our followers on social media, also our radio listeners who make all of this possible, because it starts there as well. But these comments, like, we do go through and read these comments. We do look at them, and it makes me extremely happy to go through and see some of them and see your reactions. It's very real. And it just gives us a great pulse on what is happening in the market and helps us with our existing clientele and people that we're working with. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing to our YouTube page, TikTok, and Instagram. And we will be right back here next week.